Hello, everyone, and welcome to Off the Wall. My name is Sol, and I have another book video for you. February is Black History Month here in the US, and if you're looking to read some books by Black authors this month, you're in luck because I have some recommendations for you. I'm going to give you about one or two books in different genres, so there is a book out there for everyone. Starting out with sci-fi, my recommendation is The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I love this book, and even though she has only ever written one book, her second one coming out this year, Micaiah Johnson has become an auto-buy author for me. Before the MCU was tackling the multiverse, this book was tackling the multiverse, and it does it in such a unique way. To be able to traverse the multiverse, you have to be dead in another universe. This makes it so that those who are less fortunate and more prone to death, either from being poor, famine, disease, violence, etc., are the ones who can go from universe to universe. The company that founded the technology to traverse the universe hires these individuals, and that's where Kara comes in. Kara's life has been cut short on 372 worlds in total, but on Earth Zero, she's alive and therefore a perfect candidate for multiverse travel. She's plucked from the dirt of the wastelands and now lives in a nice apartment on the lower levels of the wealthy and walled-off Wiley City. Trouble finds Kara when one of her 8 remaining doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, plunging her into a new world with an old secret. What she discovers will connect her past and her future in ways she could have never imagined and reveal her own role in a plot that endangers not just her world, but the entire multiverse. It's such a good book, and I can't wait for the sequel that comes out this year in March. If you like sci fi, this is the book for you. Trust me. Another book I would recommend in the sci fi category is Do You Dream of Terror 2 by Temi O, but I've talked about that book a bunch of times on this channel already. If you want to see my thoughts on it, go check out my top 5 books of 2023 video, which I'll leave a link down below. Now, for fantasy, I have chosen Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse, who is half Black and half Native American. And this book is set in a civilization of pre Columbian Americas, so the Americas before people from Europe came and ruined it. From the synopsis, a god will return when the earth and sky converge under the black sun. In the holy city of Tova, the winter solstice is usually a time for celebration and renewal. But this year it coincides with the solar eclipse, a rare celestial event prescribed by the sun priest as an unbalancing of the world. Meanwhile, a ship launches from a distant city bound for Tova and set to arrive on the solstice. The captain of the ship, Zyla, is a disgraced teak whose song can calm the waters around her as easily as it can warp a man's mind. Her ship carries one passenger, described as harmless. The passenger, Serapio, is a young man, blind, scarred, and cloaked in destiny. As Zyla well knows, when a man is described as harmless, he usually ends up being a villain. It's a really good book, and the third book in the trilogy will be out this year in June, so it's a perfect time to pick it up. Another book I would recommend in fantasy is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown, but I'm rereading that book this month, so you'll get to hear me talk about it in my first quarter wrap-up video later this year. So make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon so you're notified when that video comes out. Now I'm going to speak about a category I almost never read in, and that is horror. If you have been watching Off the Wall for a while, you know I don't watch horror movies, I don't watch horror TV shows, and I don't read horror books. But every once in a while, a good one comes out that I really enjoy. For movies, Get Out. For TV, The Last of Us. And for books, The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Lavelle. From the synopsis, Charles Thompson Tester hustles to put food on the table and keep the roof over his father's head. From Harlem to Flushing Meadows to Red Hook, he knows what magic a suit can cast, the invisibility a guitar case can provide, and the curse written on his skin that attracts the eye of wealthy white folks and their cops. But when he delivers an occult tome to a reclusive sorceress in the heart of Queens, Tom opens a door to a deeper realm of magic and earns the attention of things best left sleeping. If you want to read a horror novel by a Black author, this Lovecraftian novella is the one for you. Now, for romance, my recommendation is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. In all honesty, read all 3 books in this trilogy. Each book focuses on a different Brown sister, so you can read them as standalones, but my favorite is Get a Life, Chloe Brown. From the synopsis, Chloe Brown is a chronically ill computer geek with a goal, a plan, and a list. After almost, but not quite, dying, she comes up with 6 directives to help her get a life. And she has already completed the first, finally moving out of her glamorous family's mansion. The next items: enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. But it's not easy being bad, even when you're written step by step guidelines on how to do it correctly. When Chloe needs a teacher and she knows just the man for the job, Redford Red Morgan is a handyman with tattoos, a motorcycle, and more sex appeal than 10,000 Hollywood heartthrobs. He's also an artist who paints at night and hides his work in the light of day, which Chloe knows because she spies on him occasionally. Just the teeniest, tiniest bit. But when she enlists Red in her mission to rebel, she learns things about him that no spy session could teach her, like why he clearly resents Chloe's wealthy background and why he never shows his art to anyone, and what really lies beneath his rough exterior. It's a fun, cute romance book set in Nottinghamshire, England. And when I first read this book, I had to ask Bogz what some things meant because there are some Englishisms in this book, like the sport of netball. We don't play that here in the US. I had no idea what that was, and I love sports. So I got to learn about a new sport. Will I ever play it or watch it? Probably not. If you want something light and fun with some good chronic pain rep and some spicy scenes, this is the book for you. For general fiction, I'm bringing out an oldie but a goodie, and that is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Like many people my age who have read this book, it was probably in high school English class, so forgive me if I don't remember completely everything that happened in this book, but I really did enjoy this one, and I do want to reread it eventually. This book is about Janie Crawford, a woman in her 40s who returns to her town in Florida after a year-long absence and recounts her life story to her friend Phoebe. There are several themes in this book: gender roles and the role of masculinity, liberated women, including liberation from racial history, domestic violence, and sexual norms, and living in a post slavery South. Janie's grandmother was a slave, and this is now the Jim Crow era in this book. I remember really enjoying this book when I read it in school, and it makes me sad that other kids won't get to experience this book because it is a banned book in several parts of the country. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. Now, for nonfiction, my recommendation is Hood Feminism: Notes from the Women That a Movement Forgot by Mickey Kendall. In this book, Mickey Kendall tackles the intersectionality of feminism and the issues and areas that those who claim to be feminist ignore. She argues that mainstream feminism rarely talks about meeting basic needs as a feminist issue. But food insecurity, access to quality education, safe neighborhoods, a living wage, and medical care are all feminist issues. All too often, however, the focus is not on basic survival for the many, but on increasing privilege for the few. That feminists refuse to prioritize these issues has only exacerbated the age old problem of both destructive discord and women who rebuff at carrying the title. Moreover, prominent white feminists broadly suffer from their own nearsightedness with regard to how things like race, class, sexual orientation, and ability intersect with gender. How can we stand in solidarity as a movement, Kendall asked, when there is distinct likelihood that some women are oppressing others? A lot of things Mickey Kendall speaks about in this book, I have experienced as a woman of color in this country and have seen where, even though I consider myself a feminist, where modern and more specifically white feminism has failed people like me. I do think that people need to take back language and actually look at actual definitions of words, words like woke and Semite and feminism. This recommendation is more for my white folks out there. I think you can learn a lot. Speaking of intersectionality, another book I recommend is Freedom is a Constant Struggle: Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement by Angela Y. Davis. Angela Davis has been fighting for the rights of Black people in the United States her whole life. And despite her views on Cuba, which I don't agree with but are not discussed in this book, she is someone to admire. This book is a collection of interviews, speeches, and essays she has done. She speaks about how the struggles in Israel Palestine are intrinsically linked to the struggles of Black people in the US. One example is police in the US being trained by the Israeli military, so the same tactics used on Palestinians are being used on people of color in the US. She also speaks to how you can't just ask people to join your movements. They have to feel a connection and commonality to it. We are all more linked to each other than we give credit to. And lastly, I got a comic book recommendation for you, and that is Flawed by Chuck Brown and Prenzy. This comic is described as an ultra-violent, high-octane thrill ride that's Frasier meets the Punisher. Jem Ease is a psychiatrist in the Kafkaesque, I hope I said that right, Kafkaesque city of Sedum, where corruption and brutality rule the streets. By day, she uses words to solve her patients' problems. By night, she takes a more direct and sometimes deadly approach. But when her practice puts her in the sight of an immortal serial killer, Jem finds herself embroiled in power struggles that threatens everything she's ever known. Doesn't that sound awesome? If you're still here, thank you for sticking through the whole video. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. We are so close to 300 subscribers and would really appreciate it if you helped us with our goal. I'm Sol, this is Off the Wall, and I'll see you next time.